Here we go. So, welcome to an attempt of a digital learning lesson regarding oral presentation. So, this is intended for the 26th of March, but it's something you can come back to guide you with your writing of your speech. So, what you'll need to do is log into Teams, or if you have the OneNote app, just go straight into that. Access the class notebook. Go to your 2.5 oral presentation folder and make sure that the 2.5 speech exemplar typed is there. So that's the folder or that's the file that we're looking at today. So that's going to be in your main class notebook, which I have shown you before. If it's not there, you can try refreshing, go into a new browser, into a different browser type. So if you're in Chrome, you could try Internet Explorer, that sort of thing, and then copy it from the content library if that fails as well. So it's definitely in the content library under 2.5 oral presentation. Most of it is, well, the whole thing is on this video, but it's much easier to go back if you have a copy of it in front of you. So today what we're doing is looking at a typed speech exemplar. This is just a model exemplar to show you what your writing could look like for your speech that you are all diligently writing at the moment. So that is what it's going to look like. I'm in the content library at the moment. It's here. It's here. I haven't distributed it yet, but I will by the time at the end of this video. I'm just waiting to upload this video and put the link at the top of the video as well, so there's no excuses. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. Today what we're going to do, I will read through the speech and then you can complete the tasks, and then what I've done as well is just broken down the introduction and one main point to give you some further learning on development. Some of you are a little further than others. Don't you find it funny how the topic you know best in the whole wide world is yourself, but the thought of speaking about yourself and only yourself 5 minutes can be kind of daunting? Well, here I am, ready to tell you the tale of me. I'm Tristan, and over the next 5 minutes, you're going to learn a thing or three about my upbringing, interest, and basically who I am in a nutshell. When people look at me, it is clear that they go through the default stereotypes on first glance. Asian, so clearly I must be good at maths, bad at driving, and excellent at buying up all the houses. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that's not the case here. I'm a second generation New Zealander. This means my parents were actually born here, so I was born here too, and you have to go back to my grandparents to find someone who was born in China. My grandparents on my mum's side moved here for opportunities and a fresh new life. What's even more interesting is where they moved to. Taranaki, the Naki. This is not a hotspot for Chinese culture, and if anything, you could say it's pretty bloody cold and not exactly welcoming of difference, especially when my grandparents moved there in the late 1940s. But their struggles for acceptance and fierce determination to succeed is something I have undoubtedly gathered. They refused to let coldness dictate their life. They worked hard on farms, mended clothes, and eventually raised enough money and social acceptance to set up a small shop in the community. Their refusal to be defined by stereotype led my mum to being a pretty intense individual who had some strong values, and I've carried this through to my life. I'm not going to let someone tell me who I should be based on my appearances alone. My grandparents went through too much to let me just submit to those pressures. But my life isn't all valiant stands against prejudice. I am pretty stock standard Kiwi in a range of ways. Whilst I don't play rugby, here's where genetics can impact you a tad, I do live at the beach, enjoy the outdoors, and have headed out west to tramp the treks that are on offer. I think the outdoors is something that we can take for granted here. Talking to my cousin who still lives in the motherland, it is clear that taking a breath of fresh air when you walk outside is not the status quo for everyone in this world. Whilst I think we exaggerate our clean green image just a tad, I have to say that we do truly live in a beautiful country. I think the relaxed nature of New Zealand has crept into my bones and settled into my personality. My friends say nothing really phases me, and I'd have to agree. So, I said before that I don't play rugby. Well, what do I do? I'm a musician. I started learning to play an instrument when I was 5 years old, the classic recorder. But I advanced from there and now can play almost any string instrument that's available to me. I dabbled in piano for a bit, but it wasn't for me. Why music? Well, I said there's something wonderful about being outdoors, but I can't really describe accurately the sense of freedom that comes from creating and playing music. I feel like it's the way I express myself and how I am feeling at the time. I just let my fingers do the strumming so my mind doesn't have to do all the thinking and feeling. It's brilliant. Well, I hope I didn't bore you too greatly. I am an ethnically Chinese, mentally Kiwi, outdoorsy but indoorsy music player. It's easy to think that your life is pretty boring, but from writing this, I can see no one is boring because we are made up of so many unique facets and things that no one could ever truly call us dull. Thank you for listening. Okay, so that is me reading the speech to you. What I'd recommend is that you go back through and read it yourself once again and then answer the questions. So these are your questions, and there's more that you can do, but these are just some starting points. So you're going to identify the writer's three main points, what language features they've used as their hook, and if you did the work the other day on hooks, that makes it easier. What are two things that influence their identity? Find a rhetorical question, find two examples of colloquial or informal language, and then write about the effect. Find an example of a short sentence. Think about why they might use a short sentence, find an example of listing, and then based on what is written here, go back, look at the mark scheme that's in your booklets. It's on the second page, I think, maybe even the third page, and give it a grade and explain why you think it's that. If you've done that, I'd recommend going back through and finding other language features. Go back to your grid, look at what language features we use in speech, and see if you can find them, because I can bet your bottom dollar that you'll be able to find them. So pause the video and go back and answer those questions. When you've done that, you can finish there and go into writing. But what I've also done for the next couple of minutes is I will go through and look at the introduction and the main point and talk about how they're structured and what you can take away from that and how you can replicate that. So that's pretty important if you are ready to write your speech. Most of you should be starting your introductions in the next day or so. So what I've put here is the introduction. You'll see in green, there's the hook. The yellow is the introduction or topic established, and the blue is the main points. So the hook that they've got there, talking about themselves, but they also talk directly to the audience as well. So not only have they got that rhetorical question there, but they're saying you, yourself, you, yourself. That makes it engaging for the audience. It makes them feel like they're being spoken to right from the outset. Then it goes into a sort of shorter sentence and talking about them. There's a little bit of alliteration there with tell you the tale. And their first name is Tristan. So that's why that works. They're going to then, in the blue, talk about what they're going to talk about. So upbringing, interest, and who they are. This could be more detailed, and they could also include reference to their identity. So that's something to think about. So as it says there, your introductions, when you write them, boys, should have a hook, introduce yourself, and state your main points. From there, they could also provide your definition of identity. So that was one of the tasks that you were meant to have done in your booklet, and you could just copy that across. You could also provide more details about yourself. So I've talked about this with some of you, but some of you might consider putting in things like where you were born, the date you were born, how old you are, and a couple of basic points about yourself before you start. So this one's kind of quite a brief one, and you could do something like that, or you could add in these details as well. So that's up to you. I'd recommend giving a go writing your introduction, and I would love to read them. Please, please, please send them to me. Please. I'm going to be so bored. Please send them to me. Then what I've got here is the main point, the first one, because it's probably the best developed point that you'll see there. So I've got four sections of colours, and this one here I've explained what they are. So the first bit is the yellow. So here they've introduced the point. So they've talked about their ethnicity. And they've talked about stereotypes, they've tried to use some listing, and they've tried to talk about some a little bit of humour in there. So that's really important. And it's clear from there that they're probably going to talk about their origins and being Asian and being Chinese. The green provides information about the family and the background. Then the blue, which is really good, is that development. So they could have stopped at the green, but the blue allows a little bit more reflection. It allows some more examples. It links to identity. And so ultimately, that helps it get from a really basic point, which would maybe take 30 or 30 seconds, let's be honest, to read, into something that's a bit longer, a bit more developed, definitely convincing, and maybe even effective, which is what you need in excellence. So you'll see if you're doing this, you don't just want to list information about your family. You want to then talk about an example or a memory, And then you want to think about what that shows you about your family and what that shows you about you. So don't just state something, just like essay writing, you're going to go into development and explanation to go along with it. Then the pink bit is linking to themselves some more. Okay, so thinking about how that impacts them. This one's really good because it's got some humor, it's got some links to the audience, it has listing, there's some nice use of language. They refuse to let coldness dictate their life. So dictate is an emotive word. There's some colloquial language in there, pretty bloody cold. And it's got some really thoughtful comments about their identity and how their family has influenced that. So when you're thinking about what you're writing and you're talking about your interests or your hobbies or your family or your heritage or anything like that, you want to come back. You want to talk about how it shows your identity and how it's made you who you are. That's really important for those higher grades. All right, that's all for this video. So hopefully you have read the exemplar and you've answered those questions and you've listened to this little bit here and you're ready to get into it and do some writing. Really important. Get onto it. Send me what you've got. Adios.